be here is here now, and as we probably get some more people and attendees join in. My name is Jay Alwalia, and I am the co-chair of our Toronto chapter of Punjabi Chamber of Commerce, and welcome. I want to welcome everybody to the part one of the webinar series for Study in Canada and Honest Review. And just wanted to kick things off by telling you a little bit about PCC. PCC is, it obviously stands for Punjabi Chamber of Commerce. It's a non-profit organization funded by the generous support of the Punjabi community. Established in 2017 by the members of the Indian Punjabi community in the greater New York and New Jersey area. PCC is dedicated to uniting and helping our Punjabi community globally. We have a strict no religion policy in place, pretty much meaning we're strictly a non-partisan, non-political, and non-religious organization. And since our inception, we've helped entrepreneurs grow their businesses, professionals lead their organizations, and community leaders expand their reach. Our members come from various backgrounds ranging all across the different sectors and industries, from large corporations and SMEs and entrepreneurs and that are located in USA, Canada, United Kingdom, and India. So this is really a global movement of the Punjabi community, and I would encourage everybody that's on this call or know about PCC to consider registering and being part of this movement. I'd like to now introduce you to the moderator for today's discussion. Her name is Anupama Vajik, who is the CEO of the Punjabi Community Health Services PCHS Media. Anupama's nonprofit experience spans over 20 years. Her work has been predominantly working within the settlement sector, youth, as well as with survivors of domestic violence. Her passion for giving back continued even after she switched her careers. Anupama has been on various boards, including ACO, which is AIDS Committee of Ottawa, CASSA, PCHS, as well as Sahara Services in BC. Anupama worked in the labor movement for 12 years, working on bringing changes to precarious workers in the property services sector and the healthcare sector. And currently, Anupama is a proud member of the Toronto chapter for the PCC group. She's also the president of the board of the newly formed organization called SUNO, which helps international students cope with mental health, addictions, and human sex trafficking issues. She is, like I said, the CEO of PCHS Media and a certified empowerment coach, working with women looking to change aspects of their lives. So Anupama is extremely happy to be a board member of SAFFS, which is based in Chicago, Scarborough native, and is a survivor of domestic violence as well. So, without further ado, I want to turn it over to Anupama, who will, introduce the panelists and lead our discussion today.
Thank you so much for that, Jay.
No problem.
I'd like to introduce Pramila first and foremost. So Pramila came to Canada from India in 1981 as an international student. And she was a student to pursue her PhD at the University of Toronto. She is an educator and a community organizer. She works locally, nationally, and internationally on immigrant workers' rights, human rights, and climate justice. In recognition of Pramila's work, she has been awarded the Mahatma Gandhi Pravasi Samman Award for outstanding services, achievement, and contribution to keeping the flag of India high, the NRI Welfare Society of Canada. She's also received the CASA's Excellence and Equity Award for Economic Justice, also the City of Toronto's William P. Hubbard Award for Race Relations, Excellence in Teaching at George Brown College, and she has several publications to her credit. And she's also someone I look up to because Pramila was one of my professors. So great pleasure to have you on as one of our panelists, Pramila. Okay, the next panelist that we have is Professor KDS Bedi. He is the Vice President of Chitkara University. Strategic alliances that he has is skill development initiatives in sales, training, and development, and founder and the Director Principal of Chitkara University. He's an expert skill, behavioral, and sales trainer. Professor Bedi has a glorious history of contributing in the field of training and development across diverse disciplines. Professor Bedi has been certified as Global Sales and Merchandising Trainer by the Coca-Cola Company that's based out of Atlanta, and he has basic and advanced sales training for certification by Mercedes-Benz. He is also certified on modules like Campus to Corporate, Communication Skills, Conference Call Essentials by Achievers Inc. Corporation, and he's currently pursuing super specialization in best practices for training and development by the Government of India and the Ministry of HRD.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Bedi.
Thank you so much for such kind words to introduce. Thank you so much.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi, sorry, I lost you there for a second, Professor Bedi. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Rather, I must thank you for such a nice introduction. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'm going to get to the questions that I'm going to be posing both to Pramila and Professor Bedi, and as well as their students who I will introduce, they'll introduce themselves through the conversation that we're going to be having. I have for you is Professor Bedi. Students that are dreaming of coming here, to Canada from India, what are some of their expectations in your experience?
Well, I would say that historically, if you see, Canada has always been an attraction for Indians, way back from Kamagata Maru, more than 100 years back. There was an aspiration for Indians to look for greener pastures, and Canada was one of the main attractions all across. And that is true. It's still the same, rather more, because situation is again here, such where, except for this year, where we experienced this unprecedented and unparalleled situation of COVID. More than 150,000 students moved to Canada to pursue their higher education till last year. And the number was ever increasing. See, the point is, as I said, historically, it was an attraction, and for many reasons, undoubtedly, Canada offers, probably a better lifestyle, I would call it, and in many ways, even to the extent of, better quality of life, as compared to the cutthroat competition that we have in this country, India. But then, there was always something that was attracting the youth. All the more prevalent was in Punjab, because here, if you see the affordability factor, anybody who's doing good in life in Punjab, or for that matter, if you see the statistics, most of the bank officers, bank managers, corporate honchos or whatever, whosoever could afford, could send the children to Canada to pursue their education. That was one aspect. And I would say, I would rather address my situation into three parts. One is the opportunity. If you see, undoubtedly Canada is offering good, for over 100 years to Indians. Second is, in the current scenario, affordability to send people for education to Canada. It's an expensive proposition, but then, people want to spend money, largely that the farmers, the landlords, they see that even selling their land and sending their children or wards would still be worthwhile, assuming that the life there would be much better. That is a presumption which is here with the parents or with all the people. And it still remains. If you see the education system, if you see the government support, if you see the healthcare yeah, arrangements or everything, definitely Canada is offering excellent support to and I would also like to say that the kind of middle class of Canada vis-a-vis middle class in India, there is a contrast. You know, the middle class in Canada is enjoying even better than the middle class in India for whatever reason. Call it environment or pollution or other problems, struggles, and everything. Now, students want to go, but unfortunately, they are not guided correctly. That's the challenge. Probably, you know, I would again put and categorize students into three categories. There are students who have a dream of going to Canada and have a proper plan to execute that. You know, this kind of student, you know, probably does enough research about the career that he or she would like to pursue, the kind of subjects that he or she wants to study, and the dream of going to Canada is there, but the plan to go to Canada and settle down and to achieve success is only, I would call, out of the 100 students who go there, there are only 10 students who have this action plan. I mean, probably the kind of university they would like to attend, or the kind of subjects they would like to choose, and permutation and combination, they make enough effort to choose the right, and they probably get into such kind of courses. You know, that
Perfect.
this is one group.
Mhm.
Largely the second group of students, I would call another 70 to 80%. They have the dream of going to Canada. Probably that dream has been ignited by the kind of pictures that show beautiful buildings, the CNN Tower of Toronto, and the kind of Niagara Falls and everything, you know, probably the big cars and beautiful houses and all that. That 70 to 80%, they have that dream of going to Canada, but have no plan to succeed there the way one student should do at the age of, let's say, to begin one's career at the age of between, let's say, 20 to 25. So they are finding simply a means to an end. They want to reach Canada somehow, you know, by hook or by crook. You know, IELTS here, Canada is very wise that way to pick the cream, you know, probably the IELTS score that they have set, you know, they want to attract the cream from India or for China or from Philippines or whatever, you know, because they want English speaking people who could you know, adjust well or gel well into their culture, in their profession and whatever. So the barrier is set properly, but then struggle for Indians, particularly coming from villages or tier 2, tier 3 cities, is a challenge. They spend enough money to clear their IELTS exam also, you know. There are mushrooming institutes which are doing. So majority.
So Professor Bedi, I just want you to hold on to some points because there's going to be some questions where I'd like you to continue to elaborate. Okay,
Yes.
but the key points you brought, fantastic. So
Yeah.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Ashna, who
Yeah.
is one of the students that we have on our panel. Ashna, if you can tell me who you are, when did you come to Canada? And what did you go to school for?
Hi, so I came to Canada in 2018 September. I go to University of Ottawa. I still do. I'm in the final term of my master's in law and technology. So it's basically an LLM, but with a concentration in law and tech.
Perfect, thank you. And Anushre is also one of our student panelists. Same question, who are you? When did you come to Canada? And what did you go to school for?
Hi, I'm Anushre, like Ashna. I came to Canada September 2018 to study MFA in Film and Media Arts from the University of Windsor. So Sorry, like, is there any follow-up question or just like that's it?
Oh,
Just
so this is just introduction. I'm
okay,
gonna have more
awesome.
questions for you guys
Amazing.
later.
Oh no, so I was just thinking about it. Okay, yeah. So I did my MMA. So I just actually graduated this May in my MFA in Film and Media Arts. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. And I believe I saw Kamal Kera's name. I'm not sure if she's still with us.
No, Anupama, she's not there.
She's got, okay, so we'll circle back when she comes. So the next question that I have, this is for Ashna. What were your expectations when you arrived in Canada? And how did you cope with coming to a new country? And did you have a support system?
Yes, so expectation-wise, as Professor Vedi quoted, that there is an ultimate Canadian dream which is sold to students in India. So of course, I had this beautiful imagination that, oh, big buildings, nice people, great culture, which indeed the latter part was true. But talking about the first part, I actually happened to not take the residence, and when I moved there, at like a small room coming from a decent apartment in India and moving to a small room, that's where you cook, that's where you study, you sleep there. My whole expectation shattered there. And I feel what's the other question?
So how did you cope when you came here, and did you have a support system?
Yes, so I cope with talking to my family. I would say initial 2, 3 months, I didn't told them what I was going through, whether it's emotionally or it's mentally. So I feel that afterwards, when I realized this, that there's a need to talk it out to my family, tell them what I'm going through, is when things started getting better, both education wise and career wise. And my support system was my family. If I need anything, they were there for me. And that is the reason why I came to Canada. I wouldn't have gambled my life, because I know a lot of students come here, and a lot of my friends, when they're here, they're like, we're not going to ask for a single dollar from our family. But I was like, when you're sick or when you can't work, there's so much study load, you need to ask your family. And yes, I feel in that case, I was privileged enough that my family could support me, not just financially, but as well emotionally too. So that was the best I could do, reach out to friends, reach out to family.
Perfect. And Ashna, did you have a support system here? I know you said that you reached out to your support system back in India, but how about here in Ottawa, Canada? Did you have anyone that you could count on or chat with?
Well, I do have friends here, but as I said, you cannot count on financially on someone here. I don't have a family here. Let's say I will be the first generation from my family to study abroad at Canada. So I feel that is quite a pressure on me as well. And this is, as I said, that it gets hard because I know a lot of my friends, even if they do have a support system, not really they get that kind of support which they anticipate, because coming from India, they would say, oh, we have our uncles or we have our aunties here. But I feel that they kind of deviate from why they came here for. They would expect that, yes, okay, this person's going to help me, but in real, no, that's not the situation. So I feel in a way it was blessing in disguise. It made me a more independent person. So that's how my experience was.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Pramila, the next question is for you. The question is, if you can provide some examples of some students that you have worked with who have immigrated. You can't hear me? Okay. Okay. So tell me, if you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, okay? Can you hear me?
You have to repeat everything you just said.
Okay. So if you can provide some examples.
Okay.
Okay. Provide some examples of some students that you have worked with who have immigrated over here. And I know, Pramila, in your bio, you were an international student yourself. So if you can provide your example and also some students' examples that you've seen firsthand.
Okay. And Anupma, thank you for introducing me so beautifully, and I treasure you as a student. It was very early in my teaching career here, and when I came, I had already taught in Delhi University for 3 years before I started. So when I came, had worked, I had studied, I had a whole full life and a very different experience of coming and being a nobody. So it's a huge shock it's a culture shock of a very enormous nature. Is while it provides you the freedom of anonymity, nobody knows you from anywhere, that is very freeing. At the same time, there isn't anybody there. So it's a it's a huge kind of drop in how you think of yourself. So there is that was so the culture shock is it is a catch-all phrase really, but it is so important for people, for students, for anyone who is coming here, not as a tourist, but with a way of coming to live here or make a life here. So it starts with, obviously, with jet lag. Your life is turned upside down physically, right? You're always sort of saying, on which time am I? India time or Canadian time? And Canadian time has got 4 zones. Where in Canada am I? Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention is that everything I had known and everything any student, any person has known all their life completely changes. The air, the smell, the language, people's behaviors, verbal, non-verbal cues, phrases, the way people express themselves, the thank yous and the pleases and the sorries, which you have to completely intersperse everything you say, starting with a thank you, sorry, please. These are not part of one's vocabulary when you are growing up in India. At least it wasn't mine. And it is those are very small but very significant things which make you continuously the adjustment to a social climate. So because you are not a tourist, and I think that is the difference between being with the coming with a purpose of being here long term. Whether when I came, I came here only to study and finish my PhD and go back, and then life interferes. The other thing which I have seen with students is with, and it varies a lot, the level of homesickness, which people don't talk about. It is actually, I have had that feeling in my being of being so homesick that I was sick. You lose sleep, you lose appetite because nothing is familiar, right? So being able for parents and for forthcoming students to understand that there is a huge amount of emotional and psychological factors one should be aware of, not that you can simulate and let them go away, but to be aware of that these things are happening. So the other part of connected to that is performance in school. The change is so radical. So at however well trained and well educated you are, whether you are coming as a first year student or in a master's program or a PhD program, in my case, the emotional aspect of how you are really has a bearing on your performance, especially in the first semester. So one should be aware that what you have thought about yourself as your benchmarks in terms of your grades and marks which you have always gotten, they are, in my experience, go down. And at some point I have a list of 5 things which we can come back to, which are really important for parents and students to really get a very good handle on how not to put on that burden of expectation
Perfect. I think that
Yeah.
that section will keep as the golden nugget for the tips section.
Okay.
The next question for you is Anushre. So Anushre, if you can actually provide some examples of what kind of issues that you had to face, how did you cope with them, and who did you turn to?
Yeah, I would say personally for me, my experience in Canada had been bittersweet. Bittersweet in that sense, I was lucky enough to get like really great professors and teachers who helped me. And these professors were of non-Indian origin. My professor, my supervisor was Korean. My other professor was a German lady, and they actually understood that I was an international Indian student, kind of struggling in all sense. For me, my expectation was that I will make friends with people in my department. I will make friends with the Indian community at my university. But eventually, what I realized is there is such a big disconnect between Indian community and the Canadian kids. When I say Canadian kids who are born and raised here of any ethnicity and race. So for me, being an Indian student from Delhi who grew up speaking English as well as Hindi, though I couldn't connect with a lot of my Punjabi friends and a lot of my Canadian born friends. So for me, I was in this middle space, and I just realized I found kind of friendship and support with a lot of international friends from Iran. Uh, from Korea, from Germany. So for me, I just realized one thing: when you're an international student from India, you find friendship and support from people like you that are not actually your co-ethnic. So what happens? Like a lot of people expect that, hey, I am from India, you are from India, let's be friends. But that doesn't happen. What happens here is people don't might not like it, but a lot of people from South India seek friendship from people from South India. A lot of people from Punjab seek friendship from Punjab. People from New Delhi, same, seek friendship from New Delhi. So when you come to Canada, you think that your Indianness will attract you being a part of the larger Indian community, the secular India that everyone talks about, but that's not the case. Yeah, people will be your friend. There are common instances where you share food, but on the surface, when you actually, for example, if there is a job opening somewhere, a Punjabi person will recommend a person who speaks Punjabi. Same with Gujarati, same with Bengali. For me, someone who's speaking Hindi didn't really gel with the Indian community, with the Canadian community. I was in the middle space. So my support system was actually great mentorship from professors who actually understood what it feels like to actually not fit anywhere, to actually have an in-between identity. So I was lucky about that. And again, my parents were my support system. They actually understood what I was really going through. To be honest, I don't really want to claim any victimhood because I really fairly had a great time here in Canada. And I will acknowledge my privilege in doing so, that my parents actually supported me for the first 2 years until I actually got on my feet. So yeah, these are some
Perfect.
of my experiences. Yeah.
Thank you, Anushre. So Kamal Kira's not on the call. She got bumped off, but I've gotten permission for to share kind of her experience. And I've mentioned this before, and I'll mention this on this platform. You know, Anushre, Ashna, and all the other students, every single student has a different story. They've had a different experience. So with Kamal, she came from Punjab and she was studying in Peterborough, which is on the East End, but because there were so many students, especially Indian international students that were studying there, there was not enough accommodation. And some of the issues that had come up were that there was about 20 students living in one house because there was not enough space for them to live there. So Kamal literally went to school in Peterborough, but drove an hour and a half to 2 hours to live in Brampton, just so that there's a space for her to live in. Another experience that she also had was at her college, they had essentially brought in a lot of students in a program that they didn't choose, but they said, don't worry, apply for this program, you'll get in quickly. And when these students went to go do a placement in order to graduate, they didn't have enough hours. So the college said to them, I'm sorry, you can't graduate, you have to do another semester. And so for those people that are on this call, a semester can cost anywhere to $5,000 plus just for one semester Canadian. So my rupee to Canadian conversion is not the best, but this is a real significant cost. And especially if the students are only allowed to work for 20 hours a week, how are they going to make up that money to complete their semester in order to graduate? So that is very similar to what Kamal experienced, but also a lot of the students that Kamal had interacted with, especially in that college. So that's another example. Professor Bedi, if you can answer this question, we'll keep it to 2 minutes. So we had a discussion offline about agents, recruiters, and overseas consultants. What have the students told you, and what did the agents promise them?
Well, I would say, though there is need for having these overseas consultants, unless we have them, probably one cannot come to a right conclusion. But the tendency in this part of the country is not to reveal the truth. They are more into business, and the ethics actually permit where it should be open, something that we are discussing, the pros and the cons need to be shared with the parents and the students firsthand. But here, they only show the rosy picture. Majority, I would say, majority would show the rosy picture, and the hard facts of the reality is not actually shared. As a result, many students face difficulty when they reach there. So I only hope and pray that there should be a mechanism. See, though there is much of advancement from what it used to be 10 years back, because thanks to internet and all the information available, and on the click of a button, everything is there. In spite of all that, the larger number of students, they still believe what is shown or what is told to them at the face of it. So this needs to be improved. And of course, my only thing is that, see, it is not only your physical being shifting, as Pramila said, it is emotional, it is cultural shock, it is a whole, you are 20,000 miles away you are going, and the world is different altogether, and my own experience, I would like to share. My son went to Canada in 2011, and rather after having put 1 year of his engineering program in India. So it was all the more difficult decision for him and us to send him. But evaluating the options, we still sent him. And as rightly pointed out by, again, Pramila, the first semester of his 4 years of engineering was the toughest, where he himself was taken aback with the kind of cultural differences and the teaching differences that were existing. But thanks to, like Anushre said, the support system that he got from his mentors, the faculty there, and the good part is that in Canada, the group size of students is small. There are only 20 or less than 20 students in a class, unlike India, where it is more than 50, 60. So the focus, the concentration, the personal contact, and the motivation provided by his immediate teachers and the faculty was amazing. At a moment of time, I was sitting a world apart, I would call, in spite of, see, there was no WhatsApp during those times. There was, what do you call, wo hota tha, kya naam hai aapka, there were other means we were, but then, we could support him, but greater support came from his immediate faculty and the teachers, and he became so rough and tough, rather, and he gained tremendous confidence by the end of the first semester, that he was mentoring other students. He was a student, they call it a student mentor. He was good in English, and he was even supporting Bangladeshi or a Pakistani or maybe somebody from Philippines. The support, it is an international experience, I would call it.
Yes.
They're made for each other. That is the best part. They
Thank
want
you.
you to succeed.
And
That is the beauty.
Professor Bedi, thank you for providing a real life example, especially you having your son who came to Canada and your experience as a parent. I think that's very important for the parents that are watching this as well. So thank you for that. The next question is for you, Pramila. If you can provide some realities, I know you touched a little bit upon it at the last question, but what are some of the realities that students face when they come here? And also, Pramila, there's a couple of, there's one question that was asked for you, and maybe we can chat about that towards the end. But just to keep that in mind, there's one of our participants that would like to ask you a specific question, okay?
I think the teaching and learning piece is really very hugely different. The methodology, the pedagogy, right? So that takes some getting used to. And no one actually is telling you what to do. You have to understand the responsibility which it puts on, as much as there is freedom. That responsibility and combination of freedom and responsibility is really hits very hard. If you don't show up for a class for 10 days, nobody is going to call you and say, hey, you were not there. You just see it on your sheet of participation, mark is 0, right? So there is a way in which there isn't any monitoring, and that the first blush of freedom can be quite a shocker, right? And so I have seen that happen. The issue of time management, how to do 6 courses or 4 courses in one semester, because you also want to reduce the length of time you're in school. So you can take on more courses than you can handle. And I think that is thing which we, in university setting, there is a little bit of a leeway, but in a community college setting, like I was teaching, there isn't a choice of saying, okay, I'm going to reduce my course load. Not only that it gets more expensive, it also gets it's not possible. That option doesn't exist. So the way assignments are due, I'm talking about at a very micro level, at the everyday level of where students I have seen get stuck, is not being able to produce the work as it is required. So you, in order to prep for the class for 6 classes, you are actually in school continuously. But if you are, as Anushra had said, and Ashma also said something about, if you are also expected to be finding work during that time, because that is the first thing a student, where is the work? And I said, that you are here and living is work here, because you have to completely fend for yourself. Even if you have financial help, you have to learn to cook for yourself, you have to learn to commute, you have to learn all the things which you have taken for granted growing up are not available to you in that sense. So it is exciting, it is also very frightening. So I think the combination of the two is really important. The other thing is about who is your community, and who is your communities. It has to be very plural. And what was most exciting for me is when I lived for 5 years, not 1 year, in a dorm, shared room, as a 27-year-old experienced professor. I lived in a shared dorm because that was the cheapest way in which I could survive. I lived on $5,000 a year, right? But I was involved in the student politics. I was president of the Graduate Students Union at University of Toronto. I participated. I used every resource the university had to offer: the library, the gym, every student club, right? So I was out there, but then then at night I couldn't sleep because I was so homesick. So, but I kept healthy. I made khichdi every day. That was the cheapest meal and the most healthy meal, right? So there are many ways in which, if you, as Professor Bedi said, if you have a plan, if you have thought about some of these things beforehand, some of the angst can be prevented. It is a very important thing to be resourceful and curious. Man, I have learned about the world like I would not have. I had 6 people in my unit, and they were all from 6 different countries. But what we shared we were all international students. So that is the community, the idea of who is your community, how you build that is very, very important for surviving and for thriving.
Thank you for that, Pramila. And you had also mentioned offline that when you were an international student, that the only jobs that international students were allowed to do were on campus. And I think it's really significant, right, to talk about how it was only on campus and now how things have evolved.
Well, yeah, just quickly, not only any job, I can only be doing a teaching related. I could only be a graduate assistant or a teaching assistant. And it was 10 hours a week. And every year the visa had to be renewed for that, for 10 hours a week. So it was very, very strict. So when I ran for the president of Graduate Students Union, it was an election, and there was an honorarium attached to it for $2,000, which was like a minefield. And I was like, wow. So I went to get permission from the visa office, and they said, isn't there a Canadian who can do that you should be doing this? And because there was money attached to it. And I said, obviously it looks like there isn't one. And I'm running as a student, as a student body. Anyway, they did give me permission to get those $2,000 per year as an honorarium. So it is, perfect. I was not eligible for SHIRK, which is the biggest scholarship for getting, for doing postgraduate work, or any other scholarship, right? So there is a very serious issue in terms of resources, financial resources.
Okay, so Pramila, there's just 2 more questions left that I'm going to ask all of you, but the next question is for Anushree and Ashna. If you can let me know if there is something different that you could have done prior to coming to Canada as an international student, what would it have been? So I'll let Ashna go first.
Yeah, so I feel there are a couple of things which I would have done differently. That is, research more on what I really wanted to do in Canada. I would say most of the students get deviated when they go to these counselors. On my face, the first counselor said, oh, universities? There is no such things as universities in Canada. Students go to colleges. And I was like, I don't judge students going to colleges, but that counselor was like, why do you want to do LLM? No, you shouldn't do LLM. I said, I'm doing my bachelor's in law. Doesn't it make sense for me to do LLM? No, you should go to college. And as you said, he was saying, oh, we'll put you in this course. You can change it there. And as I said, they are the perfect example of the word jugaad, which is known by all the Indian diaspora and all the attenders, I'm sure, here. So I think that was a bummer, but then I was lucky enough that I met this counselor who gave me a huge bunch of lists which only focus on universities. That was a 360-degree turn. And that person was like, you should go for LLM. Your credentials match enough for you to get into a university. So I feel maybe research more. I did my research on what that counselor said. Maybe I would have researched something else or waited a little after I graduated, because most of the students in India, they just want to run. Once they graduate, they feel there's a ticket to Canada, to that ultimate Canadian dream. But I feel just wait up, work somewhere, and I feel maybe that would have been taken me to a different stream of education, but no regrets in that. And I think one more thing which I would have done differently was not taking off campus living. I'm sure on campus is extremely expensive. It's almost, the difference is double. But now when I see the kind of experience my friends got living in dorm and what I got was very different. Like as Professor Agarwal suggested, that she got to experience with about 6 students, different coming from different countries. I was living alone. There was no interaction. I was living all by myself. My most interaction was going to my courses in the university, which was what, 2 times a week, because I was doing my master's. So I think these are the two things I would have done differently, maybe. But yeah, it's a good suggestion for everyone to research as much as they can.
Thank you so much, Ashna. Anushre, if you can answer the same question. And after your answer, what I'm going to do is there's a few questions. I'll direct them to who they're asked for. And then the last and final question is for tips. So everybody would be providing tips on what they can provide students as well as parents. So Anushre, if there's something you could have done differently before coming here.
I would have certainly, as Professor Agarwal say, that there are a lot of scholarships that international students are eligible for, sure, but a lot of counselors, they don't really know how to counsel us, right? That's their job, to counsel us, but they do the opposite. They actually undermine us before even stepping foot in Canada. So for me, hey, I was a GA. I was lucky enough that I was offered GA-ship just like right away, but I didn't have any idea what graduate assistantship is, because in India, this concept is only eligible for PhDs, if that I'm aware of. And I am pretty sure 90% of students studying in India don't know that they can actually be eligible for TA-ships, research assistantships, graduate assistantships. I know there is some competition for sure, but you gotta try, right? And your counselor should say, hey, you're applying for these universities, you're applying for these colleges. Why don't you contact these 10 professors and say, hey, I want to be a graduate assistant. Can I be that? So when you land in Canada, you don't have to just find a part-time job right away. You can say, hey, at least I've got this GA-ship right now. I can pay my rent. I can eat. I can buy food. And being a graduate assistant is amazing. You just have to work 10 hours and you're working with your professor in your university in a safe environment, as well as actually interacting with a lot of students, right? So that's a really great experience. And the second I would say is actually just doing your own research. I know it is very tasking, but that's the beauty of internet today. You can actually Google and everything is available. You don't need to go to counselors and seek help from this fufa, chacha, taiji. No, they just misguide you. Trust me. Just take your time. Google the university that you want to go in. Google the colleges you want to go in. Google the courses. Google the professor, the faculties, the campus life, the communities there. And hey, by the way, it's just like people say we don't find community here. Make your own community. Be the student leader. Involve yourself in student politics. Me and Ashna, we had the North American Association of Indian Students. If we couldn't find a community, we are building it. So these are two things that I think if I would have done previously in India, it would have helped me a lot.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that, Anushre. And I want to ask you a question later, if we have a few minutes, about the drawing that you have beside you. I know it's written in Hindi. I can't read Hindi, but we'll talk about that later. So Pramila, this question is for you. The question is from Ramandeep Kaur. Can I ask Pramila ma'am how she dealt with emotional and physical stress? I mean, you can talk to your family, but there's an inner hollow which you feel all the time, like you don't have anyone in this country. You don't trust people and others with so many responsibilities. You need to keep yourself together. How do you do that?
Okay, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. The best thing which I did, because I used to be an athlete, so physicality was a very important part of my being, just my soul, and it was not just for my body. It was good for my soul. So I made time to go to the athletic center for their aerobic classes when they were first starting. So I was there, and that was very, very, very helpful. The second, thankfully, I was very fond of reading from when I was very young. And that really helped because I was reading not only my schoolwork, but all the other things which I read before, fiction, non-fiction. And I began also to learn about the true Canadian history of Indigenous histories. And I began for that to understand that I didn't know anything about Indigenous histories in India. So that made me very excited also to learn about indentured labor, migration of labor. That was part of my thesis work. But I actually saw people, say, from Trinidad, from Guyana, who were my roommates, and I thought, oh, that is who they look like, right? So there was a very hugely important thing which was happening, like my circle was coming to a full circle, things which I had heard about. And so I got a lot of emotional support from seeing the world and finding people. It wasn't about trust at all. There was no need for trust or mistrust. It was actually understanding a new language of communication, so it takes a long time to get to find your feet in a new place, and it is challenging as much as it is exciting. So I would not and my sense of home still is as acute. My half of me is always in Delhi, right? So this sense of, I would say on a good day, I'm a citizen place of two worlds, and on a bad day, neither. So this in between place which you were referring to in terms of identity, location, sense of being, sense of completeness, is a migrant's dilemma. First generation migration. By the time you're Anu Sharma, it is different.
Thanks,
so thank you.
Thanks,
I hope it helps. It's kind of complicated, but.
Okay, so we have two questions. One of them, Meenakshi, I want to know about the job opportunities in Canada after the completion of Masters in Computer Science. So Meenakshi, I think that would be a longer conversation that we can have offline. I will make sure that our admin for Punjabi Chamber of Commerce provide us with some information about you so that we can chat offline. The next question is, what is the average expenditure one should expect, because for a middle class family, it is very difficult. So from my understanding, and one of the panelists, please correct me if I'm off a little bit, but from my understanding, in order, especially for, I'll use the community college example, that the average expenditure one should expect, in order to come and stay for 2 years, you need to have $16,000 Canadian in a GIC. And that money is to pay for your tuition, that's to cover your rent, and that's to cover your basic necessities. That is just the bare minimum. So anything else, you want cell phones, you want anything else to eat out, etc., that is in addition to that. So $16,000 Canadian US is the baseline. So that actually is what I've been told from the students that I've been working with Suno. So that's sort of to give you a ballpark figure. You know, in a lot of the jobs, we're going to be having different conversations. This is the first of a series of webinars. The second one that we're doing is Know Your Rights, and the third is to provide resources. So please stay tuned for the other additional webinars where we'll be providing more examples. The next question is for Professor Bedi. It's reality that sometimes students do face harsh and negative comments from people, sometimes from their own people. Can you give some tips on how to deal with that and how to not let negativity affect us? How do you stay focused?
Yeah. See, I would rather say that your own mental well-being is so very important to survive in a totally, different culture, particularly when you start your programs in the first semester. And very rightly pointed out by Pramila is that, your passion, your interest in reading, you're keeping yourself busy in some activity, in a productive activity. I'll give you an example, live example of my own son, Well, he was doing computer science engineering, and first semester, as I said, was a very, very challenging one. There was a program in Java and all that, which was all new for him to learn. So he was taken aback. But then a constant encouragement from family and the support system there in Canada could see little positivity. So he developed a passion for modeling, you see, on the weekends. And he's otherwise, by God's grace, he was good looking, and the response that he got in his new passion was very, very positive. So every weekend there was something to look at, to participate, and the opportunity, surprising, was bigger. There Indians are called Asians. Even the Pakistani opportunities are, I mean, there is a Lenga launch, or there is a, retail launch of all that, so abundant opportunities he got. And when we say that, looking at, to cope up with negativity, the only way is to develop some passion and follow that very, very religiously. So that gives you an extra feeling of doing something good. And, when you say that negative remarks, one has to cope up by probably, learning the art. See, there is again something here. We are in our own country, the kind of people that we interact are all own, but there, everybody, there is a Chinese, there is, there is a African, and there is an Asian, there is a North American, and so forth. So you get to adjust with people. You have to value their feelings. You have to learn. You have to be little tactful. Okay. You have to be little smart to understand things. It's a great learning. And once you learn this art of handling people, rather difficult people, I can bet you that will be a great learning for you to succeed in rest of your life. And this, though it may sound as a difficult position or a difficult situation to begin with, but once you overcome, it is the greatest learning, and the international experience gave you so much of confidence that probably you can be posted anywhere in the world and be still successful. So learn the art of, read good books, how to handle difficult situations, how to handle difficult people. I think reading can help you a lot,
Yes,
and
thank you.
this is you got to build that spirit within you with greater openness and positivity.
Thank you so much, Professor Bedi. Very, very important words. We have two more questions, which I'm going to actually combine. And then just looking at the time, I know some people have been on the call for quite some time. So two more questions, which I will do the best to answer. So the first question is, having a three years bachelor's, I, along with many arts and commerce students, won't be eligible for universities, as well as them require a 4-year undergraduate. How are the colleges in Canada, and what's their reputation and job prospects? So Anusha Ray had kind of mentioned this when he was speaking about what what people can do differently, what he could have done differently before coming here. So I think some of the advice that Anusha Ray had mentioned is to do a little bit of research about what kind of colleges and what the reputation is. So I can speak off the top of my head that I know that there's some very well-known colleges, and I just know most of the ones here in Ontario and in British Columbia, but Centennial, Seneca, George Brown College, those are very reputable colleges. There's a lot of private colleges that I might get in trouble for saying this, but I think it's just a cash cow to bring students in. The level of education, I'm not sure how that is, but I know personally from two of our panelists that were on the call earlier, they both graduated from Sheridan College, and they actually got a job as soon as they graduated, right? So it's, the second part of the question was, what's the reputation and job prospects? So both Kamal and Savinder both went to Sheridan College. They went and did social work. They got a social work diploma, and they're both working in a long-term care home working with seniors. So just do your research. The private colleges, I feel, don't have the best reputation just because they haven't been around that long. But the reputable ones, I'm a graduate of George Brown. I speak really highly of the ones that have been around for quite some time, but I do know international students that have gone to those different colleges in addition to the ones that I mentioned that have been really successful. The last question by Karanbir is, which province is doing economically good, and should one look for studying as an international student? So this is a very loaded question. Economically, just like India and the rest of the world, economically, the world is not doing so well because of the coronavirus. We are all struggling just to float. But in terms of the provinces overall, my understanding is, especially for the international students that are coming at the college level, in order to get your PR, you need points. And traditionally, most of the students are going to British Columbia and Ontario, but there's not enough job opportunities for them to get enough points to get a PR. So a lot of the students that are originally going to school in British Columbia and Ontario are now moving east to Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island. So there is more job opportunity. There's not a lot of students out there, but that, in my understanding, is what the latest sort of trend that's been happening with international students is. They might know everybody here in Ontario and British Columbia, but the opportunity to get work, to get your PR status, is in the East Coast, where it's a lot colder, by the way, just for those that are thinking of immigrating. But to be honest, there's more opportunity for you out there. So last question for every panelist. So I'm going to start, I'll start with Pramila. So if you can provide some tips for parents on preparing their students or their kids before they send them here.
Okay, all right. So I've got a 5-point program. One is for both, which applies to both. Be curious about the place and the people, i.e. both about where you're coming from and where you're going. Be patient with yourself and with your children. When you're sending them, be kind to them and to yourself. Don't put undue pressure, please. Be adventurous. Think of it as a big adventure, because it is an opportunity, and do not put too many things, expectations right off the bat. Take it easy, take it slow, take it step at a time. Do not. And the second is to build intentional communities, as Anushre said, that there is a way to build communities when you don't so-called have one, and when you didn't so-called need one. So intentionally, that is much, much needed. And the other thing is that students who are coming from India here, whether or not you want it, you are seen as ambassadors here, right? People expect, the larger community here expect that you will know something about your own country. So, and that you take some pride, you take pride in what values you carry with yourself and what education you carry and what knowledge you carry. So this is not about the responsibility which you have as students and as parents to prepare them to be knowledgeable about their own history, their culture, their language. It will all come in very handy. And as Professor Bedi said, the internationality of this country is a settler's country. Other than indigenous people, everybody is a migrant immigrant. So this is a very particular kind of a society where you can actually have a place. It isn't sort of so-called owned by some, of course it is owned by the white folks, but it isn't really owned by other than people who really had it and they have been taken, everything has been taken away from them. To come here and be acknowledging on whose land we are studying, whose resources we are using, it has taken me a long time, and I would hope that new students coming in actually begin there to appreciate that they are on somebody else's land, and how much respect and how much learning we should all be doing. So I would really urge people to know that, to really do it in a very respectful, not entitled way, not to just make money here and not to just exploit somebody else. And it is, be a whole person, be a citizen of this place.
Well said, Pramila.
That would be very nice.
Well said. Okay, thank you for that. So Ashna, if you can give some tips for students as well as parents. I'm going to pose the same question to everyone.
Yeah, so the foremost tip I would give is don't lose your confidence when you're here. A lot of students, when it comes to communication, in India, that's the only perk of colonization. We are good English speakers. So when you're here, don't lose that confidence. A lot of students here don't even apply for jobs which normal non-brown students would. Like, I was told not to apply for jobs in malls or coffee shops or the mainstream white students job, but I did and I got it. The experience was great. I feel don't get too much overwhelmed with so many people just throwing in some accent. Good English is what you want, not good accent. So if you're well articulated with your knowledge and with your skills, there's nothing you should be scared about. And another tip is, please talk to your parents, and for parents as well, don't think sending kids to Canada would be the ultimate ticket to happiness. No, they would get their part of struggles, whether it's cooking, whether it's laundry. Like, I had to walk in minus 40 degrees about 2 blocks to get my laundry done. And I was a spoiled kid back in Delhi. So expect the worst. But as I said, everything has its perks as well. That'll make your kid a more independent person. As a woman living in Delhi, I was scared. I cannot go out in dark, but here I can walk freely even if it's midnight. So yes, there are some pros, but there are some cons. I feel a more balanced approach, both by students and both by parents, if they discuss what they want to do, whether it comes to communication or culture, or whether it's the own insecurity among students, just talk it out. I mean, as I said, so I'm working with a nonprofit that is North American Association of Indian Students. That is a platform where I got to speak my own barriers. That is where I get to share my own experiences with students, because I feel when the students come here, they get confused. Oh, Punjabi community, Gujarati community, Malayalam community. There's no harm in that, but I feel we need a more unified community when you're here. So more beyond Bollywood nights or beyond samosa nights, I feel our organization where we are working, we actually help students, and I feel maybe get connected to these kind of organizations or associations when you're here. Talk to your professors, go to your mental health clinics. If they are covered in your fees, you're paying for it. So I feel these are the few tips which I can give right now, but there could be hundreds. And to all the attendees who are right now viewing this, you can reach out to me directly. I can share my email ID and I would connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to help any student we can.
Thank you so much for that, Ashna. And Professor Bedi, if you can provide 2 tips on to give to parents and students. Oh.
I would be very, very positive while advising the parents. Let your children explore the world. You can't really hold them on. Once they are adult enough, at least to explore options. Instead of sending them beyond, let us say, what do you call Delhi se Bombay bhejna hai ya Chennai bhejna hai. Let them go thousands of kilometers or miles away, explore the world in a better way, international scenario one. And for the parents, know your child. Parents have good inclination of a child's nature. If you feel that the child is having that ability to cope up with both the positive and the negative, encourage him to go. Explore, let the child explore the options. As I said, probably Canada offers a fantastic or a brilliant environment, to explore options at the world level. It's a country with almost everybody as an immigrant, So that is the kind of opportunity, that big is the opportunity. Don't pressurize children. There could be a fall. As Pramila said, she was a professor already at Delhi University for 3 years. In spite of all that, there was little fall in the first semester. Let it happen. There is always a second time. There is positivity. Usko bahut sara pressure nahi kariyega. And do excellent research for planning your study, which is not actually happening. So I want improvement in this field. Let there be little government regulation. Let there be little standardization in who can counsel or who cannot counsel. There should be some regulation of that, because there are 600 agents or 600 overseas education consultants in Chandigarh alone. What to talk of Punjab? Punjab, there'll be more than 10,000, I'm sure. So Chandigarh alone has 600 overseas consultants. It's a business proposition, So there should be more of transparency. There should be more of research on and thanks to the technology available at hand, I was talking about Skype, when my son went, it was Skype in 2011. Now it is WhatsApp. The communication is so fast and instant, And just to coincide the things, like something very interesting I want to share here. I was sent to Canada 40 years back, almost 40 years back, by the government of India to participate in a youth exchange program, which was held by Canada World Youth, CWY. There is an organization in Canada called CWY, and they selected 11 boys and 10 girls from India, from each state. And we were made to live in Canada for 6 months, and the Canadians came to India for 6 months. And this happened in 1981, the year Pramila went to do her PhD. But the difference was she said she was 27, whereas I was 17 years when I was there. So I could be 10 years younger to her. But that is what made me see the beautiful country, Canada was at that time, or is at this time, or may remain so forever. I mean, we were taken to universities, colleges to see the participation of the youth there towards their community development and all that.
Thank you,
what a brilliant opportunity, and we were blessed. Thank you very much for inviting us, and it's been a brilliant platform once again, and couldn't find it better than to interact both with the panelists and the participants, and we shall keep enjoying it in the future as well. Thank you.
And Bidiji, I loved how you told your story about coming to Canada and tied it into the same year that Pramila came here to do her PhD. Fantastic. So
probably 40 years after that we are meeting,
That's
and
right.
in 1981 we were both in Canada otherwise.
That's right. So last but not least, Anushree, if you can give some tips, and then I would like to wrap off with some tips that I have as well, and then Sunny will be doing the closing remarks. So Anushree, some tips for students and parents.
Yeah, first of all, find good Indian mentorship with Professor Agarwal and Professor Vedi, because I think if you speak with actually people who have such well-rounded opinion, you will get great mentorship. To seek these kind of people, professors, professional mentors such as them. Some of the tips that I kind of just jotted down: be very mindful of the courses you are coming here to study, rather just coming here in the hopes of getting a PR. I can give countless examples in terms of people coming here unable to get like any kind of substantial jobs, because for them their education doesn't really hold any value to the market demands, and they just opt for any available jobs. Always respect the Canadian degree that you're studying instead of just seeing it as a piece of paper and a gateway to a PR of sorts. The most important tip I think I will give is that don't be an illusion that Ashna mentioned, that once you arrive in Canada, it will be a smooth sailing. No, it won't be. Be very mindful of how you manage your money, the company you keep. Don't be, especially parents, don't be fooled by what people show back in India. Their new BMWs, their new house, all of them, most of them are students who are in debt here. They are working 60 hours a week to pay these mortgages. They just get any sort of odd jobs to just like actually just keep this facade of, hey, they made it in Canada. Many are just under the table cash jobs where a lot of Indian employers exploit these Indian students. And as someone who's heading this non-profit North American Association of Indian Students, we actually hear these stories a lot. Reach out to organizations such as ours. Reach out to organizations such as Punjabi Chamber of Commerce, Suno, and PCHS. These are the organizations and mentorship that will actually tell you what's the real realities. And after learning these realities, you and your parents can actually make a judgment on well-informed ideas and opinions. And just a really quick thing again. Okay, never rely on a relative or a friend coming in. Yeah, seek counseling from them, maybe meet with them, but don't overly rely on them. Another thing, check the housing that you're coming into. Trust me, do that. Speak to the landlord directly. Call them from India if you have to. Be confident in doing that. Sign a lease firsthand. Don't just come to Canada without signing a lease. You could actually be homeless as soon as you land in Canada, or have to book an Airbnb. That's like really expensive. I would have not listened to a word by by most of Indian community here, because it's perpetuating the hustle economy. But again, I would say rather seek advice from your professors in your colleges and try to network with like-minded people as much as possible to actually get first-hand and uh, really realistic ideas about the Canadian life, economy, and the country that you're stepping in.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Anushree. And I just have a few tips just to echo what the panelists have said. Suno Charity, SUNOH charity.com, is a nonprofit that myself and two other individuals started just because we know that the issues that international students were facing when they got here to Canada. My tip, the two tips that I'm going to give is, there are people here that are going to take advantage of you, but there's also people, just like Anushree mentioned, there's organizations that are also here to help you, that are not going to take advantage of you, not judge you, and will selflessly be there to assist you. There's the conception that everyone is just here to take advantage. So know that there's organizations that are in place to help you. The thing that I wanted to mention is when we talked about agents talking about telling the students to come here, apply for any program that you'll get in. There's also, in addition, what they mentioned is you're not going to get a job in Canada once you get here. So the only loan that you're going to get is a car loan. So when you get your car loan, you can get a job with Uber Eats and skip the dishes, but they don't mention you're going to get a car. If a student who's never driven a car before decides to get a Dodge Charger, spending $60,000, $70,000 to make car payments, they're not talking about how they're going to make those payments, but they also don't talk about the car insurance that they're going to be paying too, right? So know that if the agent's telling you get a car loan, great, who's going to pay for that car loan? So just think ahead and question. You have every right to ask these agents those questions, but there are other jobs besides skip the dishes and Uber Eats. And a lot of the other students that are coming here are asking if they only want to work cash jobs. So the cash jobs, they are getting taken advantage of. We'll be talking about that on our November 21st Know Your Rights webinar. But know that when you're working, there are jobs that are legit, that you can work legally with your SIN card, and know that you're going to be that's going to help you later on down the road. So those are my tips. I wanted to thank Punjabi Chamber of Commerce for giving us this opportunity, and I'll pass it over to Sunny.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sunny Gari. I'm part of the Punjabi Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to thank all the panelists for giving us all this insight information. And we are this platform's here to help people. Know that we're here to help people, anybody in need, and any advice they need. We're creating this platform so people can share their experiences and share their knowledge and share and educate people, so we can get people in the right direction. Get involved if you can share this with all your friends and family. And we want to create a following so we can better help everybody, and so everybody can make the right decisions in a lot of topics. Not just we want to help our students as well. International students, they're our future, and the kids are our future, and we want to make sure that our future is bright, and Canada is a land of opportunities. So if we were here to make a difference in people's lives, that's the goal of Punjabi Chamber of Commerce, and we want to spread the news and spread the word. So the best thing you can do is tell everybody to join, and if there's any topics you feel that we need to talk about, let us know. We will try to get panelists and organization and organize a great panelist discussion like this we had today. Thank you for all the guests. Thank you for all the advice, and we appreciate your time. And we can start this another session hopefully soon. Anu, thank you for organizing this, and it was a beautiful, well done seminar.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Take care. All the best. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.